Here we go. Okay, this is it. Hi. This is my very first YouTube video. Yes, I know it's September, it's 2020, and I'm just now joining the bandwagon, which is called YouTube. For those of you who know me, thank you for joining. Make sure you hit subscribe so that you can always watch my videos. And for those of you who don't know me, hi, my name is Paola Rosser, and I am the CEO and founder of the Fearless Female Movement. And I'm the host of Journey of a Fearless Female, the podcast. All right, so I launched the Fearless Female Movement back in 2018 on Women's International Day. I was actually cold and freezing, and I went outside because my mentor told me to, and she said, if you're gonna do this, you've gotta do it now. Turn on your Facebook Live and tell everybody what you're gonna do. It was nerve-wracking. But not as nerve-wracking as to when I lied to 500 people. Yeah, I lied in front of 500 people. So let me rewind a little bit. Okay, so we're gonna be honest with each other here. I might as well, since this is my first YouTube video. So back in December of 2018, my husband, Travis Rosser, hope you know him. He's the author of You Inc. and also the co-founder of Kajabi. But back in December, he was asked to speak because he just finished writing his book, You Inc. And we went to this mastermind in Puerto Vallarta. And honestly, I went there because I just wanted free margaritas. But because it was the middle of December, only half of the people showed up. So there was a total of maybe 7 people, including myself, at this mastermind. And so when everyone had a turn on the hot seat, and if you've ever been to a mastermind, you all get a turn on the hot seat, they pointed to me and said, hey, do you want to sit down and talk about your dreams? Well, when I sat on the chair, I kind of just started talking about my husband's dreams and how I was going to help him, make sure his book gets top seller. But Dr. V, who, if you know him, stopped me and said, that's fine that you want to be a great entrepreneur's wife, but what are your dreams? And so I sat on that chair and I told that small group of 6 what I wanted to build. See, for a long time, I was looking for a community of women where we would inspire, empower, and uplift one another and help each other out, because I was starting to be in this new world called entrepreneurship, and I had no clue what it was all about. But unfortunately, every group that I joined, there was just this catty competition in it. And there was a lot of negative vibes, and I just never seemed to fit in. And so one day my husband said, why don't you just build it? Build the community that you're looking for. And, to be honest, I sat on it for a year. I mean, my husband did buy me the URL, fearlessfemale.com, but I sat on it for a year. And then honestly, if you would have Googled or typed in fearlessfemale.com back in 2018, it would have pointed to nowhere land because I sat on it for a year. And I'm going to tell you the reason why I sat on it was because of fear. Fear is such a debilitating emotion. It can really stop you from being truly who you want to be. And for a long time, every night before I went to bed, I imagined what my community would look like. What it would be about, how I would conduct masterminds, how I would have a podcast, eventually write a book, do speaking engagements, feature women with incredible stories of how they faced adversity and still rose. I mean, I imagined it in my head for over a year. And then when Dr. V had placed me on that that little chair, the hot seat in Puerto Vallarta, and I spilled my guts, he wrote it all down, because if you've ever been to a mastermind, there's a scribe that writes down every single thing that you should be doing in order for your dream to come true. Well, I ended up taking that piece of paper and I threw it away. I went home, I just threw it away. It was overwhelming to me, just all the things that I had to do. Then fast forward February of 2019, my husband was then again asked to speak in front of 500 people for Dr. V's Velocity Tour in Las Vegas. And right before he was going to get on stage, Dr. V came over to me and said, "Hey, do you want me to is it okay if I introduce you to my crowd?" And I was like, cool, he's going to say something nice about how great of an entrepreneur wife I am, right? No. This man introduced me to 500 people as Paola Rosser, the founder and CEO of the Fearless Female Movement. Oh my gosh. I was terrified. There I am with a microphone in my hand in front of 500 people. The lights are beaming on my face. There's a lump in my throat. My heart is beating out of my chest. He put me on the spot. But I spoke from the heart. And I told everyone what I wanted to create as if it was already a thing, as if it was already a movement in the process. And so once I got off the stage, there were so many women that ran to me and said, "Hey, I cannot wait to be on your podcast. How can I be on your podcast? How can I join your Fearless Female Movement? I can't find you on Facebook. Did you know that your website isn't working right now?" And I'm like, I had none of that. I had nothing. So even then, I went home and I sat on it for another month. I mean, the fear was so crippling. I couldn't even begin to start this movement. I didn't even know how. But those women were relentless, and I love them. Thank you so much for just being persistent. Shelly and Jenny, and just amazing women who just kept messaging me and saying, "I want to be a part of your movement." And so finally, in March, during Women's International Day, I called up my mentor now, but at the time I just only met her once, Danelle, and she said, "If you're ready to do it, fly to my house in Denver. I will give you the roadmap on how to begin." And so first time I ever flew away from my husband, first time I was ever away from my husband, we had only been married 2 years, and I went by myself, and Danelle and we wrote down everything that I wanted to do, and at the time it was still just a dream. And it has evolved. I'm like so surprised that since 2018 to now, 2020, I have over 1,000 women in my Fearless Female group on Facebook. I have 75 episodes of women telling their amazing stories and their journey. I have 12,000 listeners on my podcast, and it's just been a wild ride. And now I'm starting a YouTube channel so that I can reach even more women, because I truly believe that we all have this power inside of us, this roaring flame that's just ready to burn. But unfortunately, we have dimmed our fire. We have dimmed that light to fit in society's box, or whatever it is people have told us growing up. You're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not skinny enough, you're not beautiful enough. Our family doesn't have that capability. You don't have that education. We've all heard that throughout our life. And so therefore we have dimmed our light, dimmed our fire, kind of smoldered it. And so we have lived with this dream, this passion, this fire inside of us, but we don't want to let it out because we're afraid. We're afraid of failure. We're afraid of what people might say. We're afraid of the comments that might show up on Facebook, Instagram. We're afraid of how we look. Failure is like the biggest thing that I was afraid of. But looking back, I'm so thankful that I started this business. I'm so thankful that I let go of my fears and created it, because I'm seeing the impact I'm having on these women, not only on the women that listen to my podcast, but the women that I mentor. I started a coaching business where I was like, wow, at first I was doing it for free, and I was actually just telling them all the nuggets of wisdom that I was picking up from the books that I read, from the podcasts that I listened to, from, the YouTube channels that I would watch. And I would say, oh my God, you've got to hear about Tony Robbins and Jack Canfield and Oprah and Joe Dispenza and Michael Singer and Gabrielle Bernstein. And all these people were like, oh my gosh, I've never heard of them. Oh, and I would tell them about the books that I would read and the quotes, and I would talk about meditation and you know, just everything. And it just has evolved into this amazing community. Everything that I have ever dreamed of during that year where I was just like looking for what I wanted, I've created. And you know, you've heard this in many YouTube videos, but thoughts do become things. What you see in your mind, you can hold in your hand. And I'm so grateful that I took the leap, I let go of the fear, I faced everything and rose. Because I did that, I have made an impact, and I want to create a bigger impact. I want to touch more women's lives. I want to help them find that fire and that power inside of them, and I want to help us rise together. So join me if this is for you. Subscribe to the channel, share with your girlfriend, your bestie, your sister, your mother, your mother-in-law, your sister-in-law. Share it with any female that you think needs to be a part of the Fearless Female community. And let's rise together. Thank you guys so much for joining me on my first YouTube channel, YouTube video, and I will be posting more stuff weekly. I'm going to have either my podcast or a spiritual teaching, and I'm just excited to see where this goes. All right, thanks.